Hey everyone, this is Jane with Barlow Herbal, and happy Sunday, February 2nd of 2025. I had a super fun week, a super busy week, and I'm excited to share some of my thoughts with you. This is going to be a little outside of the normal because I had a couple of cool experiences that made me realize that it's time to have more fun with stuff and with things I'm thinking about, the way I'm walking through this planet and this lifetime and all of it. So let me just share with you what my first week, part of the week of journaling was about. I think these are some important, cool thoughts. And then I'm going to share with you kind of some things that happened and my thoughts on that too. So the first thing I wrote was that timing is everything. Don't stop digging for gold in growth, wisdom, learning, gratitude, and abundance. You know, there's this little meme that I've seen flowing around for years where they show these two men that are digging in a tunnel and they're side by side, and one is dragging his pickaxe and has turned around and given up and is walking back through the tunnel, and he's only a few inches away from a cave full of gold. And the other person, the other man, is digging, and he's at the same place as the first man who's leaving, but he's only a few inches away from the gold as well, and he's continuing to go. And I've seen this metaphor many times, and if you think about the things that happen to us as adults, we're trying to find that thing, that relationship, that purpose that is driving us to have whatever it is we want in our life, but we give up before we get it and we move on to something else. It's like this shiny object, or this isn't working, so I'm going to do something different. In fact, one of my sisters said to me this past week, I think one of the things that I admire most about you, Jane, is that you just keep doing what you're doing day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. And I think that when we nurture these things, it's like digging for gold. And I've tweaked it along the way, the things that I've done. And so this is why I wrote that. Timing is everything. Don't stop digging for gold in growth, wisdom, learning, gratitude, and abundance. You know, I think there's always the rule of 10,000 hours. You know, someone is an overnight success, but they've been practicing for a decade or 10,000 hours or whatever it is. I think that practice and staying consistent with things, it can affect everything. Our health, it can affect our abundance, it can affect our relationships if we keep growing and learning and all of that. So I also had, when I thought about that little meme of the two guys that are digging for gold and the one gives up easy, it also reminded me of this little experiment that was done where they put fleas in a jar and they put a lid over it. And the fleas kept jumping up and hitting the top of the jar. And then over a certain amount of time, they took the lid off, but the fleas would just stay within the boundary of where the lid used to be, because that was what they were conditioned to do. And I think that that's applicable to many of us with whatever your life, your relationships, your abundance, your finances, whatever that looks like. We put these limitations on ourselves, or they were maybe put on us in childhood or in a certain relationship, and we think that that's the limit. And I think that's a really good theme that I'm thinking about some of this other stuff I'm going to share with you. And to me, we put limits on ourselves because we're not willing to think outside the box. And if we do believe that there were limits when we were a child, and many of you can relate to this, and then you learn, oh, that's not really a limit. That was just maybe a limiting belief, but it's not really true. So I really love that. So as I was kind of writing this first stuff, I spent a little bit of time this week. I did my herbal video. I did it on the creosote bush, which is chaparral, one of my favorite plants. It's one of the last videos I just posted that's right next to this on the YouTube channel. But what I've started to notice, and I just reminded myself, I wrote this down in my journal because I want to remind myself to come on and I wanted to do a little experiment. So if you notice that you've been watching my stuff for a while, I never ask you to give me a thumbs up. I never ask you to really comment unless I say, what do you think about this? Or I'd love to hear your thoughts. And I usually do that at the very end just because I'm curious and I also love interacting with you. But what I have noticed, and I've noticed this over the last probably 4 or 5 years, is that a lot of the views on my video get taken off. I noticed that last August I did a video on the Lionsgate portal. I thought it was a really fun thing. I went on the next day, I was doing work, and I just checked on the video to see if there were any comments, and it had gone from 1,000 views, almost 1,000 views in one day, and it was down to 400 views. And I was like, okay, that's so weird. I'm just talking about a Lionsgate portal, and so I've noticed that. So I'm curious, for all the people that watch this, if you can even do a one word, I'm here, or I watched this, or whatever, I would be curious to see if that changes something. So I'm asking you to give me a comment and maybe give me a thumbs up on just this video, because I'm really curious what's happening. I also post the exact same videos on Rumble, and what's interesting, I just thought this was fascinating, because I don't monetize this channel. This is just something I do because I love connecting with you guys and sharing stuff that will hopefully spark some interest in things for your own life and your own thought process and your own growth or whatever. But over on Rumble, I have about 350 people who follow me. And I get more views than I have people that follow me, because I think it's just organic and whatever. But here on YouTube, if you're watching this on YouTube, it's so weird because the views are much lower, and I know there's a ton of content, but this to me is just a curiosity thing. So if you are here and you're watching this, pipe in with one word and even just say hi. And I would love to see if that actually changes anything. Okay, I just thought I would do that, and I wrote it down to make sure I would ask you. So then I had a day where I realized this. I am truly on my own journey. It feels lonely a lot of the time until I realize the enormity of the limitless time I have ahead of me. I was just having a moment this week where I was feeling a little bit lonely, and I was feeling a little bit frustrated with some things at work, and just, the day-to-day density of being a human being on this planet sometimes gets to you, and gets to me for sure. And I jumped quite quickly out of it because I thought, it feels lonely a lot of the time until I realize the enormity of the limitless time that I have ahead of me. Oh, that's so perfect, right? So am I still thinking or overthinking, behaving or acting like I don't really know what this is all about, and that this is a short period of time on this planet? And the answer, of course, is yes, else I would have never written that, right? I need to remind myself to slow down and stay patient and enjoy myself more. And then I ask, am I still overthinking or behaving or acting like this life is all there is? And the big answer to that is yes. I'm always overthinking things. I've always known deep inside my soul that this whole existence is a tiny piece of the puzzle. I think because we're so caught in it on the day-to-day and the things that we're responsible for, and just taking care of our body and all the things that we forget. Okay, what if you lived your life with that thought, that every day, every moment, regardless of what happens, no matter what happens, and you might have to practice and remind yourself until it comes from a place of pure habit. We need to remind ourselves that inside our souls, we know that this whole existence is a tiny piece of the puzzle. So my goal from the rest of this week of my thought processes was to enjoy the physicalness of this physical life, of this earthly life, this gorgeous planet. And when I did my herb video I recorded it on Wednesday, and I put it up on YouTube on Thursday. And when I was recording it, this is a plant that I really love. This is, like I said, it's the creosote bush or chaparral. I use it a ton. It's in a bunch of our formulas. And this is a powerful plant, and it has a deep memory for me with my dad and going in the desert with my dad where this plant grows. And one of the things that my dad was such a master at was the ability to go out into Mother Nature, sometimes by himself, for periods of time, a weekend, a week, a couple of weeks. And it was a little bit to the chagrin of my mom because there were so many kids for her to take care of. But I do think that this was my dad's sanity, his sanctuary. It was a place for him to go and connect to a higher power, a higher spirit, his higher self. And sometimes over the years, many times, we would go with him. And we would, not all of us sometimes it would just be a few of us or even one of us. And we got to experience being out in the desert, being up in the mountains, going experiencing some of these brilliant parts of Mother Nature and this physical planet that we live on. And it's a reminder that we're here. We should enjoy, despite all of the chaos and the angst and everything that's happening. So doing that video this week was a very deep reminder for me that I probably need to start doing some of these things my dad did. As far as, he used to have this leather pouch, these moccasins, this great hat, and he would go out and he would camp in the back of his pickup truck. Usually had a camper shell. He'd get a foam pad. He'd bring a sleeping bag, a couple of blankets maybe sometimes, and he would go out and he would spend a few days by himself in the desert. And I think that this is how human beings for centuries have been not just surviving but thriving, is getting out and having alone time. And our alone time looks very different. It might be taking your laptop and going and sitting in a coffee shop, and you're still tuned in, tapped in, you're connected to what's going on your laptop, you're surrounded by people, and that might be a pleasant thing to do, and I'm not dissing that at all. I've had my share of doing that as well. But I'm talking about truly disconnecting and reconnecting with yourself and Mother Nature, right? So that was awesome. Now, also, this past week, I got to go to Sedona. I was just there for 2 nights, and I went to a small mini retreat. It was a 6-hour event with Isabella Green, who I saw her on the Inspired podcast. I looked her up. I bought her 2 books, and I read them. And all of her information really resonated with me. And it's interesting because I've been getting, I've been talking about, here and there, escaping the reincarnation trap. Whatever. I didn't used to believe in reincarnation. I've had a couple of past life regression sessions. I've read a lot of books. I've watched a lot of near-death experiences and out-of-body experiences. And I've really been opening and broadening my perspective of the way I see the world and working beyond the 5 senses, the things that we see and touch and taste and hear and feel and all of that. Because like most of you, I'm a searcher, I'm a seeker, and I want to see what's out there and what resonates with me. So I watched a few of her interviews, I read her books, I went on her website, and she was doing a little 1-day retreat at where she lives in Sedona. And so I thought, well, I'm not that far, and I can pop down there. I ended up going with one of my nieces who lives in Arizona. She picked me up at the airport, and we went to Sedona, and it was a reminder of this simulation that we live in. So what I did is I made a list, but before I go on to that, another thing, after I spent a day with Isabella, and I really didn't have a lot of one-on-one interaction with her because it was a retreat, it was awesome. And I got to spend a couple of nights with my niece, and we ate some good food, and we talked about all this stuff we were learning and discovering. It was really amazing. And it was a deserty. It was a little chilly and windy while we were there, but it was, there was cactus everywhere, and Sedona was the first time I had ever been to Sedona. It was beautiful. But then yesterday, Saturday, the 1st of February, I had a scheduled podcast with a man from Australia. And I get matched up, and I do podcasts, on a pretty regular basis. And we had scheduled one back in December, and it got rescheduled, and I was kind of thinking, oh, you know, maybe it wasn't meant to be, but then we rescheduled it, and it was yesterday. And it was the most magical conversation. And it was so fun to connect with him. We talked about herbal magic and how the rhythms of the planet and the moon and all of the things that this conversation brought out. I was like, okay, you are part of my tribe. We had the best conversation. We even have had a little bit of a conversation about this fact that this is a simulation, and we've both read books on David Icke, and it was connecting to a like-minded soul on the other side of the planet. And it was a beautiful thing for me. In fact, when that podcast drops, he said it would probably drop at the end of this month, I will share it, because I thought it was a really amazing conversation. So after all of those things this week, ending with yesterday, I sat down and I wanted to compile a little bit of kind of out there thought process based on the idea that we might live in a simulation. So I ask that you be open-minded and just go with the flow of what my thoughts came out this week, because I think this is a really fun way to walk through this planet and broaden our perspective. I'm not asking you to agree with everything I say on any level, ever. Anytime I jump on here and talk about the stuff that I experience, or the things that I have questions about, or the things that I'm starting to believe, or whatever, this is my own journey, and this should always be your individual journey too. So if we are thinking of the thought process of escaping the simulation, meaning this reincarnation thing, when we die, the person that we miss the most or believe in is going to be there waiting for us. It's going to take us back in. We're going to have our mind wiped, and then we're going to not remember because, whatever the purpose is, okay? So open-minded as we go into this. So I've come up with some ways if we want to break out of the simulation and raise our consciousness, and here's the reason. Because we want to thrive while we are having this lifetime. So if all of this seems like total, utter BS to you, that's awesome. But you can take some of these things and expand your experience, your ability to love and forgive and have gratitude and walk through this life the way you want to walk through it. I think this can apply to anyone, no matter where you are in your journey or what your belief systems are, okay? So some of this stuff that I've really enjoyed reading about and learning about, I haven't done it yet, but this is the idea of lucid dreaming and astral travel, okay? And a lot of the stuff that I've read and podcasts I've watched over the years, I almost tell myself, why don't I just make the time to do it and really go into deep meditation? And this is my plan. And I don't know why I'm procrastinating this, but I'm making myself a commitment to spend more time meditating and doing breath work that's going to expand my experiences in this realm. So I think we need to learn to wake up inside of our dreams and explore the realms beyond the simulation. This is some beautiful things that Isabella talks about, and other people that I know personally talk about, that they do this. They do this on a regular basis. And I don't know what you feel about that, or if you've maybe had experiences yourself about that. I think that what this does is this can give us a peek beyond the veil. And as a person who grew up in a really Christian family, this almost would feel blasphemous to even suggest it or say it or think it's a possibility. So this is where I ask you just to stay open-minded. If it doesn't resonate, just pass it behind. So here's the question to ask yourself. What would you do if you could consciously navigate the dream world every night? What would you do if you could consciously do that? That would make a whole lot of fun, in my opinion. Okay? Maybe as the weeks go by in 2025, I might have some really fun things to share with you, because especially after going to this retreat this past week, I feel a deeper connection to start doing some of these things and having a lot more fun, because life's been very heavy. And I think it's probably been heavy because I needed a new perspective. Life can still be heavy if we choose to see it that way. Now, the next thing I wrote down is, and I'm just going to touch on this briefly, because I think that a lot of responsibility and awareness and care needs to be taken, and this is in exploring the realm of psychedelics. Now, I personally have had 2 facilitated plant medicine journeys. There was someone with me. There was a deep intention. Prior, it was a beautiful experience, and it was about 2.5 years apart from each other, and there was an intention. There was an intention for me to expand my consciousness, and I wanted to experience. And so I think that there are things that, here's what I wrote. When done with respect, psychedelics can dissolve the illusion of the material world and remind you of your true essence. This did this for me in a really deep, beautiful way. So here's the question you want to ask yourself. If your perception of reality is completely shattered, would you be prepared for what is next? A lot of the things that I've listened to, podcasts and whatever, have been with people who have had deep, transformative plant medicine journeys. I'm not suggesting that you go out and just do this willy-nilly. I do believe this needs to be done with care and facilitation, and some of these sacred plants were put on this earth to help human beings not just heal trauma, but to raise our frequency and raise our consciousness and remember who we are. I really believe that from the depths of my soul. And having experienced a couple of beautiful journeys, this is something I have no desire to do it for entertainment. I know a lot of people do that, and I have no judgment on that. Okay, so then I wrote this. We need to pay attention to some of the synchronicities that happen in life. Like decoding numbers, or might be coincidences or symbolic messages. So the universe or this simulation is leaving us like clues or breadcrumbs. And, I've seen things that, like, here's an example. Like last year when I was going through this crazy legal situation, and it's not wrapped up. That's another story that I will eventually be able to tell you details on what that's all about. But I'm going through the hardest part of this that at least up to that point was difficult. And as I was kind of in the depths of a despairing moment, I was driving my car, and it was in the spring of last year. I pulled up to a stoplight, and there was a person in front of me, and their car, the license plate actually said LDM-100. And then there was another couple of numbers after that. And that is the name. If you are familiar with what I do and what our family does, you know that this is what we're known for. This is a tincture we make out of a plant called lomatium, and that is the literal name of the product. And if I had not been paying attention, I would have missed it. I believe it was completely random, in the fact that I don't think that person had any idea that, I don't think they made a personalized license plate that said that. But it was, to me, it was like a nod from a higher power that everything was going to be okay. It was the most interesting thing. And I think we need to pay attention to those things. So I think we need to also question the nature of time and space. If we believe we are limitless, eternal beings, that means that time is a construct. And of course, it helps us get through this life and our responsibilities and our jobs and things are where we need to go and where we need to be. I mean, imagine what would happen if time was it didn't matter. This is one of the reasons that I feel excited about learning how to exit the simulation at the moment of my death, so that I can experience the limitlessness of my soul and the experiences that I will be able to have once I have exited this dense simulation. Okay, so we need to realize that reality isn't linear, okay? You need to explore different concepts of time loops, like the multiverse theory, and we need to be able to bend our perception as much as possible. I think honestly, guys, we've been bamboozled into certain belief sets that we can't even think outside of the box, and without seeming like we're crazy. So I challenge you to open your mind to all possibilities. In fact, there's a really beautiful movie. I've probably watched it 10 times. It's called Interstellar, and it has Matthew McConaughey. It's got Anne Hathaway, and it is an amazing time-bending movie. It's very, very good. If you've not seen Interstellar, I would definitely suggest you watch it. I'll put that down below so you'll remember it. So here's the question to ask yourself. If time is an illusion, how much of your past do you really need to hold on to? This could be your recent past. This could be last week. This could be something that happened to you, for you, whatever, a month ago, in your childhood. How much do you really need to hold on to? That's such a great question. And then I also think that what we need to do is we need to focus on activating our third eye and our pineal gland. Okay, so here's how we do this. And I've known about these things forever, and I actually work on them, and I feel like I'm so tuned in. I just need to get into the deeper meditations and the breath work where I can activate some of this energy that's going to help me do some out-of-body travel and experience some other things while I'm alive. Okay, so we need to, in order to activate your pineal gland, which is a little tiny gland that lives in the center of your brain, which is our connection to consciousness, our higher self, our higher power. If you know any about this, if you've ever studied Joe Dispenza or done his workshops or whatever, you know what I'm talking about. So we need to detox from fluoride. We need to sun gaze safely. We need to meditate on our third eye, which is, this is the third eye chakra, and use sound frequencies. And you can see I've got some sound bowls right there. There's actually 3 of them sitting in there, and I don't do them often enough. I need to pull them down on a regular basis and start doing some meditating and just some fun playing around with my sound bowls. And then there's 2 frequencies, 432 hertz and 963 hertz, that allow us to break through the illusion and see beyond the physical. And I have experienced some absolutely, they have not been out of body, but they've been absolutely relaxing, mind-opening, heart-opening experiences just by some of these frequencies. And you can easily get them on different platforms that have music. And you can even find some beautiful ones on YouTube, which is where I first started looking at these frequencies. Okay, and then this is the next thing. We can start interacting in a different way with what we consider the simulation. So here's what I wrote. Not everyone is awake. Some may be filler characters. Okay, this is tough to think about, but there are people who just don't seem like they're real. Like, that sounds so crazy. And the first time someone said to me, this was probably during 2020, someone said to me that person must be an NPC. And I was like, what? What is that? I mean, it was that recent. I'd never heard of that. And then that year, funny enough, there was a movie that came out called Free Guy. It had Ryan Reynolds in it. I went to the theaters to see it with my sister and my nephew. And he is a non-player character in a video game. And he is actually, it's actually an entertaining movie. So these are some of the things that we can do to activate our third eye or our pineal gland. So here's the question you want to ask yourself. What do you think is blocking your ability to see beyond this reality? And I do believe that there are things like fluoride, like Wi-Fi, like glyphosate, that actually calcify our pineal gland. And we have the ability to decalcify it. We take some of these things out. We start doing safe sun gazing, meditating. This will activate. So when we are engaging with a simulation, I kind of went back up to that one. So here, not everyone is awake. Some may be filler characters. or projections of the system. Okay, so this is where I say keep your mind open. We need to observe and engage, but don't get trapped in the scripted dramas. This has become so forefront for me with close people who are very close to me. And wow, when you become aware that they're just following a program, and I'm not saying that everybody that's following the programs is part of it, or they're filler people. I'm not saying that. I think a lot of these people just are not awakened, and to awaken is painful. It's like Neo woke up in the Matrix, and it was a stunning reality that is difficult. And I think when you start to get red pilled, life is very difficult at first, because everything you thought was real and everything you thought was true turns out to be not true, and the systems you trusted and all that stuff. So here's the question you ask yourself: how can you tell the difference between a background character and someone with true consciousness? To me, it's extremely easy, but that's a question you need to ask yourself. And you might just think, okay, Jane, you are nuts to even ask that question. Every single person is important, and pure love and pure consciousness, and that very well could be. I am open to all possibilities and all thought processes. So the next thing is we need to challenge our fear of death, okay? In fact, when I flew down to Phoenix this last week, I actually for a long time was a little bit afraid of flying, and I still got on airplanes, but even a little bit of turbulence would make me totally, my palms would sweat and my heart rate would speed up, and I just don't like turbulence. At least that was, and over the years I've just kind of, as I've released my fear of death, in fact, at this point, when it's my time to go, it's my time to go. I want to be prepared for my consciousness to escape the simulation, and that's my number one goal. So we need to transcend our fear of death. And here's what I wrote. We need to face our death experiences, what we're afraid of, through deep meditation, near-death research, and breath work to remove any programmed fear. I think we are programmed to fear death and the pain of death. My mom passed away 10 years ago, and I remember the last few months of her life, and especially the last couple of days, she was extremely afraid of the pain of death. And I think that's where it lies. And she verbalized that on a regular basis. She verbalized her fear of the pain. She knew, especially at the end, she knew it was the end for her. She had a deep conviction in her religious beliefs to the very end. And even though she had those beliefs and she was looking forward to going back and reuniting with my dad, the fear of the pain of death, I think, is what gets most of us, right? So we need to ask ourselves this: if you knew without a doubt that you are immortal, how would that change the way that you live? Because we can't live being afraid of death. And over these last few years, I've done just dedicated little videos on releasing our fear of death. And this takes practice along with everything else, right? Okay, so the next thing I wrote here is we need to do what I like to call rewild ourselves. Now, my little video I did on Chaparral this week, and my experiences with my dad in the desert, and all the sand dunes he used to take us to, all the mountains he showed us, and the creeks and the rivers and the campsites, and literally out in nature. It was just a deep reminder of, first of all, how lucky I was that my dad and my mom were like that. My dad especially. My mom loved all of it, but she was so busy taking care of us. She just, prepared the food that we would need or whatever. And sometimes she would send us off with my dad, a few of us or all of us or whatever. So we need to disconnect from the system's distractions and immerse ourselves in raw nature. Camp, hike, swim in wild waters, swim in a creek, swim in a river. Be safe, of course. Don't do something, oh, Jane told me to go be in a river and it was fast and whatever. Don't use your common sense. But get in the wild waters. Go be safe in nature, but go in wild nature. Feel the pulse of the planet. I've had so many experiences on hiking adventures and trips, and you can literally feel the pulse of the planet. And I will tell you, I haven't been to the desert, like in the desert, hiking in the desert as often as I like. And a couple weeks ago, I went to Arizona twice in January. And the first one was a hike with my brother who lives in Phoenix. We did an 8-mile hike, and I just flew down, did the hike, stayed overnight, and flew back. And it was awesome. It was awesome. And it reminded me of my love of the desert and just the sheer beauty of it. It's so different from the mountains that I live in. So here's the question to ask yourself. When was the last time you felt truly wild and free? And being alive in this simulation on this planet and having this physical body, this avatar, it allows us to do that. And I believe if we go into the rest of our experience on this life with the goals that we have, whatever they may be, but the realization that we're here to enjoy it and experience it, especially when it comes to like rewilding ourselves. Get back into the raw goodness of Mother Nature. Put your hands on a plant and just look at it. Don't pick everything and, but experience what it feels like. Like Mother Nature is just there. Growing, blooming, going dormant in the fall, covered with snow in the winter, wherever the seasons are for where you are. Some things stay evergreen all the time, but touch a plant, hug a tree. There is something to that. It's amazing. Okay, so then I wrote down, we need to override the system with our own script. We can override the simulation. We can write our own code about it. Reality operates on intention and belief, okay? We need to write our own storyline. If we believe that we're a time-traveling wanderer, or a cosmic hacker, okay, reality will start reflecting that. We might be able to even jump timelines. Bend your mind, right? So here's the question you want to ask yourself. If you could rewrite your life script, what would be the first thing that you would change? If you could rewrite your script. I love that question. Well, what would be the first thing to change? We need to master the art of energy work and frequency tuning. We are energetic beings. And it's been beat out of us. It's been conditioned out of us. It's been programmed out of us. Because that is the part that makes us powerful and non-controllable. So everything is vibration. We need to learn Reiki, or experience it. I've had 50 Reiki sessions over the last 5 years, probably. It's amazing to experience. Qigong is energy, sound healing. All of these manipulate energy and shift us back into higher states of awareness. So here's the question you ask yourself. If you could feel and control energy like a physical force, how would you use it? I love that. I will tell you guys, I feel like the world and humanity, every day there is awakening happening. There's a very good friend of mine, I've known her for more than 10 years now, reached out to me a week or two ago. She's in another state. She has just had an awakening. And it's so beautiful to even, I've only exchanged a few texts with her, but there is such this is such a beautiful time to be here, you guys, no matter what is happening, when we realize these things. So, let's see, where was I? So we need to master the art of mastering frequencies and vibrations. So if you could feel and control the energy like a physical force, how would you use it? Okay, that's the question. Now this one is kind of fun because if you're like me, you know, you've ever said like, oh, deja vu, or that felt like a glitch, or what happened there, or, you know, so here's what I wrote about this. We need to look for repeating people, deja vus, like a Mandela effect, time dilation, or any other type of simulation glitches. If we pay attention, they are there. And like I have a friend who has meditated and feels like she's had timeline shifts where she's actually had like a small mole on her arm at the beginning of a meditation, and then she finished her meditation, and then the next day the mole was gone. This was actually an experience that happened with this friend, and it was a mole that she'd had her whole life, and she didn't like meditate on making the mole leave, but it felt like it was a timeline shift for her. So I think there are glitches like that. In fact, you know, and this might be just me remembering different, but when I was growing up, there was a comfrey plant on the right side of our porch. And I don't have a lot of photos of it, but I got a camera when I was 14 for my birthday. It was one of those little old cameras with the cube flash on the top. It would flash, and then the cube would switch, and you could get 4 flashes out of it. That was my first camera, and you have to move the thing to move the film. But I have a picture of this comfrey bush on the right side of the porch of my childhood home. And I've talked to my other siblings, because we've talked about the things that we had, like the, you know, dad, mom's comfrey plant, and the big gardens we used to have, and the things that our parents used to do. And I have a couple of siblings who swear that it was on the left side of the porch, and I need to probably push them and say, well, okay, let's get photographic evidence. But they're certain of it. They're certain that it was on the left side. And there was only one comfrey plant our whole growing up. So I think that there are glitches that if we pay attention to, it would broaden our perspective of what this whole thing's about, right? So here's the question to ask yourself. How much of your personality is genuinely you? And how much was shaped by external programming? At the very least, even if you think that's just a whole bunch of whatever, how much of the way that you consider your personality is really you? Or how much is just pure programming? I mean, think about that. Okay, so let's see. Oh my goodness, we're at 42 minutes. Okay, so let's see. I have a couple more, but I'm going to go through this. I'm going to go through just the very top of what I wrote on these. We need to reverse engineer society's mind control, okay? And ask this question. What's a widely accepted truth that you suspect is actually a carefully crafted illusion? Okay? We need to build a community of conscious co-creators. This is something I talk about every week because I think it's really important. We need to eat like we're fueling our avatar like a galactic being. Okay? And then I need to read what I wrote here. Our body is an avatar. Treat it like an energy vessel. We need to eat organic, high-frequency foods. We need to fast. We need to have plant-based nutrition, which can enhance our clarity. When we eat heavy foods, processed foods, fried foods, fast food, junk food, soda, chemicals, they suppress this incredible light body that we are. And as a person who has experienced long periods of fasting, juice fasting, water fasting, I did a raw food diet. I ate raw food, and I'm not talking about meat, I'm talking about vegetables and fruits. I ate raw for 6 months. That was the longest time I ever just ate pure raw. And I never felt better. I felt light, I felt clear. It was one of the best experiments I ever did. And I'm actually getting ready to go into a longer fast in about 2 weeks. I have to prepare not just myself, but I have to prepare my husband who does all the cooking. It's like, okay, here down the road, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do a 7-day juice fast, or I'm going to do a 14-day 7 days of juice and 7 days of water, or 5, so I have to prepare not just myself, my body, my mental, everything, but I have to prepare my family, because it's like I can still participate in things, but I'm not going to be eating or whatever. So I would suggest that we fuel ourselves like as if we were a galactic being, which would mean we're going to respect and eat lighter and eat fresher and whatever that looks like for you. Because again, this is not about any type of judgment. We all get to choose what we put in our vessel and what feels good for us. Okay? We need to use music and sound frequencies to kind of break the code. And ask yourself, how does music affect your mood, your focus, and your sense of yourself? Let's see, become a reality hacker. I wrote this. We need to go beyond the law of attraction. Okay, we all remember The Secret. That was a pivotal movie, a pivotal bunch of work that opened up a lot of people's perspective on, we are what we attract and all of that. So we need to go beyond the law of attraction and see reality as a customizable program. Look at it as a program, okay? Experiment with shifting timelines, scripting different events, and bending probabilities. Practice this stuff. Have fun with it. Practice some witchcraft. In fact, on the podcast I was telling you about that I was on yesterday, one of the things he asked me was, do you find that people think that what you do is kind of like witchcraft and magic? And it was kind of funny. It took me off guard because no podcast I'd been on has ever asked me that. And I was like, yeah. It feels like witchcraft because it's so not what we've been taught is normal. Now I feel like I got the witchcraft growing up, and so that was normal for me. So it was a really, like I said, super fun conversation. Okay, so then the last thing I wrote here is we need to reclaim our sovereignty from this system, from this simulation. Okay, if reincarnation is a trap, then consent is key. Our consent, our free will. We have to agree. We have to agree to go back into it. This is one of the things that I really love this message from Isabella. It's like you have to agree to go back in, and they have ways to manipulate you to come back in. So we need to train our consciousness to reject the soul recycling agreement and set our intention upon an exit when we die. So here's the question to ask yourself. And this can go on whatever your belief system is. If you had the chance to break free from the reincarnation cycle, where would you go instead? And what I believe that this should kind of open up our mind space to is the possibilities and the probabilities. And here's my hope with this whole conversation is that it will open your mind to the things that might be, and if anything, change the way that you walk through this world and this experience. Because I believe that there are parts of the simulation that are really cracking and breaking down, and more human beings and soul consciousness, more and more conscious people, human beings are becoming more conscious, and we're seeing it. We're seeing a breakdown of these. And all it really takes is for us to opt out and just say no. Say, I'm not doing that. I'm using my free will and I'm going to go do this. And I think we need to have fun while we're here. We need to have fun because that's where it is. So I will put a couple of notes down at the bottom of this video for a couple of things I talked about, like the movie and maybe an interview that I watched with Isabella. Her stuff is great. And some of you might have already looked into her stuff, and I'd love to know what you think. And if her ideas and her experiences, because I don't think these are just things that she's pulled out of thin air. This is a decade's worth of really interesting personal experiences that really felt like truth for me. So I'd love to know what you think too. But thanks for tuning in, guys. I appreciate you being here. If you got to the end of this, earlier I said, hey, hit the like button and then give me a comment, because I would love to see if that changes anything, especially on YouTube, because YouTube seems to be deleting views off my little tiny channel. Like, this channel is so tiny. It's really surprising to me, but I love you guys tons. I love your comments. Thank you for interacting with me, and we will see you next time.